Welcome Year 8 to Term 5 and a brand new topic, the French Revolution. This is Mr. Sharp speaking, and I'll be planning your history lessons for Term 5 and 6, although your regular teacher will be marking your work and giving you feedback. This topic will cover an extremely bloody period of French history, where the old system, ruled by the king, known as the Ancien Regime, which had lasted for many centuries, was swept away in an incredibly short period of time. Today we will be looking at the driving question: what was the Ancien Regime? Your first task is to complete the Knowledge Organizer quiz. It is very important that you read the Knowledge Organizer thoroughly before you start. You will be asked questions in the Knowledge Organizer quiz based on the parts I have highlighted in red. Make sure you complete the KO quiz before the main tasks to ensure you understand the key terms. Press pause while you read the Knowledge Organizer and complete KO Quiz 1 on the Google Forms document. Now, open the Google form titled, "What was the Ancien Regime?" Enter your first and second name fully, so that I know exactly who has completed each form. Pause while you do this. After reading the Knowledge Organizer again, the next set of questions are true or false. I don't expect you to know the answers to all of these, it's just to set the scene for the rest of the lesson. Press pause while you attempt these questions. Paris was and still is the capital of France and was its largest city. Paris was a similar size to London and operated as France's most important city. Although the king and the people of Paris spoke French, many ordinary citizens did not. Breton, Italian, German, Flemish or Dutch, Basque and Catalan were all widely spoken in different regions of France. While these people were expected to follow French law, many people who lived outside Paris had a very different culture. It is true that just 20 families shared the top jobs in France. Later on, you will see why it was that so much power was given to so few very important people. In fact, 80% of French people were peasants. This meant they worked on farms, but did not own the land they worked on. This is a much higher percentage than other European countries, such as Britain, where people were more likely to live in towns and cities. Although this meeting of the estate's representatives was supposed to meet, it hadn't for nearly 200 years. This meant that only the most important people in France had a say in the law. As we saw last term, the King of England had lost most of his power by the 1700s, but in France, the king was still thought of as God's representative on earth. This made the King of France as powerful as someone like Henry VIII or Charles I, even in the late 1700s. All this made France very old-fashioned in comparison to Britain. To show how the Ancien Regime is structured, I'll be using a pyramid. The higher up the pyramid, the higher up the social hierarchy, and therefore the more powerful you were. The wider the pyramid, the more people belong to this group. For example, there is just one king, but many thousands or millions of people who belong to the estates below him. The king, Louis XVI, is at the top of the pyramid, as he is the most powerful. Although other people lower down made some important political decisions, the king had the right to veto. This meant the king could overrule any decision made lower down the social hierarchy. Louis XVI is often referred to as an absolutist monarch, as he had ultimate power over all decisions, large or small, if he chose to use it. Next down in the hierarchy comes the clergy. These are the men who work for the Catholic Church. Some of them were incredibly rich and powerful, such as the Archbishop of Paris, but many were poor parish priests who worked in small towns and villages dotted all over France. In theory, they were the second most powerful people in France, but in reality this only applied to the top bishops. The clergy were known as the First Estate. On the next row in the hierarchy comes the nobility. These were men who were given titles and land from the crown. Only men from this group and the clergy were allowed to own land and took the most important jobs in government. This made some of them incredibly wealthy and influential. Many, however, owned little or no land, had little influence on how France was governed, and were quite poor. This group is known as the second estate. The bottom row of the hierarchy was reserved for everyone else in France. This group was huge, around 95% of the population, and extremely varied. This group included the bourgeoisie, merchants, industrial workers, craftsmen, soldiers, peasants, and landless farm labourers, and many others. These people were allowed to rent land, but could not own it. They had zero political power. Although some members of the Third Estate were becoming increasingly wealthy, the vast majority were among the poorest people in Europe. This diagram shows you the people who belong to each estate. These are not genuine people, but the descriptions of the lives of people from the estates are real. Read this diagram carefully before you answer the questions. For each of the following descriptions, you need to choose the correct answer from the first, second, or third estate from the Google form. There is an extension question which I would also like you to try. I am a cloth weaver from Sèvres on the outskirts of Paris. My husband died from tuberculosis 5 years ago due to the damp, overcrowded conditions in our house, which we share with 2 other families. After a bad harvest, the price of bread is sometimes more than I can afford. I belong to the first estate, second estate, or third estate. Your extension question. What percentage of French people belonged to this estate? I am the Duke of Anjou. I own large amounts of land in southwest France, which have made my family among the wealthiest in the country. My ancestors have held this title for over 600 years. I belong to the first estate, second estate, and third estate. Your extension question is, who is above the Duke of Anjou in the Ancien regime? Pause while you answer this question. I am the Bishop of Montpellier. I am not the most important member of the clergy, but I have power over every village priest in my region of southeast France. I own several acres of valuable farmland near Montpellier Cathedral. I belong to the first estate, second estate, third estate. Your extension question, what privilege does the Bishop of Montpellier have that the third estate do not? Pause while you answer the questions. I am a lawyer in Lyon, one of France's wealthiest cities. I have a degree from the prestigious Sorbonne University in Paris, and I live in one of the grandest houses in the city. People regard me as a member of the bourgeoisie, yet I am landless and have no political power. I belong to the first estate, second estate, third estate. Your extension question is, what does bourgeoisie mean? Pause while you answer the questions. I am the daughter of the Count of Chanterac. My father recently had to sell some of his land to the church as we are desperately poor. He hopes I will be able to marry someone rich in order to have a comfortable life. I belong to the first estate, second estate, third estate. Your extension question is, unlike other members of her estate, why is this woman landless? Pause while you answer the questions. For this task, I want you to be the teacher. Try to describe the life of someone from the first, second, or third estate and create a multiple choice question just as I did. You can use red, amber, green like I did, so that students in the lesson can use their planners to give an answer. For your extension, write an extension question of your own, accompanied by a model answer. This should take you between 5 and 10 minutes to complete. Pause while you write your multiple choice question, your extension, and model answer. For your final task, open the third Google form called What was the Ancien Regime? Assessed question. For this task, I want you to write a description of the people who belong to each estate. I'll give a mark for each estate you describe and an extra mark if you can use evidence from what you've learned to say what they could and could not do. You will receive a total of 6 marks for this question, 2 for each estate you describe. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope the sound of my voice was not too off-putting. Best of luck and stay safe.